Why can't a poor person's child dream of becoming a doctor? The same way that a rich child can do things, a poor child should be able to do them as well.
Mothers everywhere, no matter what their income, want the best for their children. While Indian women demonstrate to gain an education for their sons and daughters, poor mothers of Campo Grande, Brazil, enjoy a Mother's Day party at the local public school. Their children are among the lucky ones, receiving their education from the largest scholarship program in the world, the Bolsa Escola. This groundbreaking government-funded system pays a stipend directly to the mother for each month of her child's perfect attendance in school.
The idea of Bolsa Escola came about in the University of Brasilia in 1987. I was the head of a research department discussing the problems of Brazil today, and the first problem we studied was children not going to school. So the question was what to do immediately to make these children study, instead of being in the streets or working. And the answer was obviously, if they cannot study because they are poor, let's pay them to study. Initially, we encountered resistance and perplexity. But then I reminded them, but all of you professors here have received scholarships and you didn't even need it. Why shouldn't we pay the children who haven't even started their studies?
The Bolsa Escola is designed to help the poorest families by replacing the income they would lose if their children quit work. To succeed, the program needs reliable funding that continues year after year. The Bolsa has been a great success in reducing school dropout rates and cutting back child labor.
You take advantage of the need of the family for money to create in the family the need for schooling.
16 million children in Latin America attend school thanks to Bolsa Escola. Pilot programs have begun in Africa. But nearly 250 million children are still waiting for their chance to go to school.
It's been shown if you invest in kids going to school, they will produce so much more in their lifetime for themselves, for the country, for society, that it makes true economic sense to invest in the human capital of children. There are estimates that it would cost about $8 billion a year to put all the children in the world in primary school who are not in primary school. $8 billion a year. We spend $40 billion a year every year on golf. So where are our priorities?
Throughout the 1980s, the government of Kenya borrowed money from the World Bank and the IMF on terms that would create a disaster for 3 generations of Kenyan children. Social spending on education and health care was drastically cut. The object was to protect the ability of a corrupt government to repay the loans.
While the World Bank and IMF and the international communities are holding us by the neck, it is partly because we have allowed ourselves to be put in that position. Can they genuinely say that they didn't know that our government was corrupt? That this money was not being used for the purpose that it was given? I think that while our governments are to be held responsible for the troubles that we are in economically, the international community bears a very heavy responsibility because they knew that money was stolen from the people.
Without the funds loaned to help their country, the people of Kenya were still left with the debts and the harsh repayment terms of the IMF and World Bank. The economic changes produced by the loans were called structural adjustments.
I think structural adjustments have a very mixed record. And I think it would be dishonest not to admit that in some cases they really did make the lot of the majority of the people in the countries where we did them worse rather than better. I think that's a criticism that is most valid especially for the first structural adjustment programs. And in part, I think, because they were guided with macroeconomic concerns in mind without paying too much attention at the social consequences of the policies that were being pushed. So what mattered was to balance the balance of payments, and then whether people got to go to school or got to eat 3 times a day was in a way not the main concern.
That was disastrous, because what it did was to leave the social conditions of very poor countries to deteriorate further, and left the bank as basically the instrument of international investors who, for the most part, were not concerned with the plight of the people in the country they were investing in, except as labor. And in country after country, we've seen the number of children leaving school and having to go to work grow over the last 20 years.
But she was unable to learn how to speak.
Structural adjustments meant parents had to pay fees to send their children to school for the first time in Kenya's history. The government called it cost sharing. Kenyan school enrollments plummeted. Today, 4 million Kenyan children remain in the workforce, many on the coffee and tea plantations where they are cheap, available labor. Martha Wamboy's family pulled her out of school for a lack of 1,000 Kenya shillings, about $12.70.
We picked the berries. I picked the raw berries. Then I took them to the trough. I was given 10 shillings. Then I picked another can. I put it in. I was given 10 more shillings. And that totals 60 shillings for the day.
50.
I don't have 60 shillings anymore. I have 50.
Daddy.
I used 10 to eat something. I had a piece of sugar cane and a donut.
In January of 2003, the newly elected president of Kenya, Mwai Kibaki, abolished school fees. A remarkable 1.6 million children have since returned to school. But the school system, gutted by years of cuts in social spending, could not accommodate the new students. Tens of thousands had to be turned away. It'll take time and money for schools to rebuild, funds the Kenyan government does not have. Ironically, the very cash crop that might be expected to help solve the problem is partially to blame for the dire financial situation in Kenya. Raw coffee prices paid to Kenyan farmers are at a 30-year low, while major multinational roaster companies enjoy record profits. Kenya is locked into a no-win situation. The price it gets for its coffee is falling, generating fewer dollars with which to repay the ongoing debts to the World Bank and IMF.
The international community has refused to pay adequately for our resources. The coffee that you see people picking and the tea that you see people picking, they will get peanuts out of it because the international community doesn't want to pay up to a certain level. They control how much we get for these primary agricultural products. So we are really in a very difficult economic trap.
By the time the coffee ends up on the supermarket shelf in the U.S., its price has risen by 4,000%. The Kenyan farmer captures almost none of this value, the worker even less.
If you are 3 people and you have 12 debes, then you get 240 shillings. And you use that to buy soap, paraffin, salt, sugar, So this is just a hand-to-mouth existence.
You know, a company ought to make a profit. I have no problem with that, otherwise it wouldn't be in business. But when you see these kind of markups of 2,000, 4,000, 5,000%, you really got to ask yourself whether or not that's legitimate in terms of how much money someone's making off of this and the fact that they're using child labor, children without health care, ill-housed, ill-fed, and with no hope for the future, no education. It's not right.
One way to get more money to the farmers is for consumers to support the burgeoning fair trade movement by choosing products labeled as fair trade certified. The label guarantees that farmers and workers received a fair wage for their products. At the Gatunguru Primary School, the children praise God for their good fortune, while their brothers and sisters pick coffee less than a mile away. On many Kenyan plantations, adult farm workers are unionized and opposed to child labor. They understand that when children work, wages fall and adult unemployment rises.
We have got 91 boys who have been returned to school and 97 girls.
These parents want to see their children succeed in school, so they've formed child labor committees to help the schools and convince plantation owners to stop hiring children.
When you look at a child in school, she seems brighter than the one that's picking coffee because there's something that she knows. If you tell her to read a letter, she can do it. But the child in the coffee farm who never went to school can't even read.
That's why we have involved the plantation owners, so that they don't employ young children, so that these children can learn and have a future.
The desire to learn starts early and burns brightly. But the prospects are clouded for this class. All 30 of these children have been orphaned by the AIDS epidemic. It is the Child Labor Committee that has arranged for a volunteer teacher and a safe place for these children.
Right now, over 1 million children who are orphaned, completely orphaned. We are talking about children now who are handing families in this country. We are talking about grandparents having now to bring up children. We've gone to some schools which have a population of 600 pupils, and 3/4 of the population is either totally orphaned or partially orphaned.
Lucy and Joki had to leave school for a time because there was no money for school fees. For 2 years, Lucy picked coffee to survive. Then Solidarity and the Child Labor Committee stepped in and paid her school fees and covered the cost of her books and uniform. Lucy's mother saw her return to school before she died of AIDS in 1997.
My mom was sick for about 3 months. She died at home. I felt very bad. I felt very bad because I'll never see her again. I'll be missing her love.
For Lucy and children like her, help needs to come from the international community and its lending institutions.
If the debts are cancelled, certainly the government will have the capacity to address all the basic needs that go into building a child.
I like school because when you are educated, your character shows through and you can become someone.
I would like to be a doctor. I see it as very good work.
In Benta's life, not just Benta's life, but all the children, when I weigh my situation right now, I feel like crying. I cry because if I had parents who could afford to educate me, I wouldn't be in such a life. I pray day and night if I can get some money so that my children can learn and can get educated more. I have worked. They are better than me. That's what I see.
My father, my mother, you give me a load that you can't bear on your own back. My legs bent, my back hunches. My neck sinks as my head is crushed, making me a worthless girl. My father, my mother, you make me work for others. They smack me, they abuse me. My head bursts of torture. I have no vision, I miss a future, making me a worthless girl. My father, my mother, who will marry me? An abused worthless girl, a worthless boy like me, to make a chain of worthless generation. Thank you.
"100 years after Europeans arrived in this country, we wear good clothes. Now we speak foreign languages. Now we drive cars, we fly airplanes. But today, our children are eating out of dump sites like dogs. 100 years ago, when we could not read or write, when we did not speak foreign languages, when we were alone here, our children were healthy and they were happy. So sometimes one asks, what happened? We were supposed to have had progress, but it seems like we regressed.
It's often said that child labor is just a product of poverty, so that it can't be ended as long as there is poverty. But that's a really incomplete way of looking at it. Child labor is also a perpetuator of poverty, because when children are forced to work instead of getting an education, they become one more generation of poor, illiterate people with no skills to advance their family.
All over the world, children live and work at dump sites, scavenging to meet their basic needs and pouring through the waste stream of the global economy gone sour. These children spend their days rooting through garbage, looking for any scrap that may be resellable. It's best to work close to the heavy machinery if you want to be the first to capture the good stuff: cans, metal, glass, or food. But the operators are tired of the scavengers who get in the way and slow down their work. A dangerous ballet is the result. Each year, children disappear into sinkholes, are crushed and mangled by the machinery, or contract diseases from what they eat or what's rotting beneath their feet. In central Brazil, where many dumps have been closed, scavenging continues at night. The dump remains the last resort for hungry families.
When the truck comes from the shopping center, it brings the garbage from McDonald's. It's a big party. There's hamburger, candies, food, yogurt. I love that. We eat so much. The trucks don't watch out for people. They run over people, and they've crushed people there.
He told me, "Mom, I'm going to the dump today." And I told him, I don't want you to go to the dump today. And he said, I need the money to fix my bike. And I can earn a little money there and I can give you some. He said, okay, bye-bye, Mom. God be with you. And I said, I hope your guardian angel guards you. Then he said bye-bye to his father. And he went. And he never came back. He died with the hook in his hand in the middle of that rotten dump.
In 1999, Brazil began a program that has removed 47,000 children from living and working at dumps by helping their families move from scavenging to recycling.
We all work together here. We don't have a boss. And we divide what we earn into equal parts. It's honest work, dignified work, with a dignified salary.
A partnership of government, industry, and advocacy groups has made this program happen, changing lives for generations.
I was pregnant with her when I was 14, so I'd go out to the dump to work to help her father, because he worked at the dump too. And even so, we didn't make very much